Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in. I'm Kyle Brotherson, this is Dirt Bike Channel, and this is yet another Would You Rather video in our Would You Rather video series. Today it's Would You Rather KTM 250XC or Yamaha YZ250X. Stick around. Guys, I get this question all the time. Would you rather have the KTM 250XC or the Yamaha YZ250X? Now there's a lot of people out there that really love the Yamaha, and for good reason. It's been a great bike over a long time, and it was a really good platform, and it's a little bit cheaper than a lot of these other bikes, especially like the KTM. So let's get into this on Would You Rather. I will tell you what I would rather do and why I would rather do it. Let's also get another thing out of the way. In 2017, when I reviewed the Yamaha YZ250X, I didn't like that bike. I freaking loved it. In fact, if you go watch my video review, I have glowing remarks about that YZ250X. It made me feel alive, and I freaking loved that bike in 2017. Problem is, it's not 2017 anymore, and my riding has only gotten a little bit more technical and a little bit more difficult, and KTM has continued to improve their line, while Yamaha has not. Guys, this is not a witch hunt for the YZ250X, it's just, I'm gonna speak from the heart, and I'm gonna tell you some of the things that I really feel, and I don't want to offend any of you. Don't get offended by what I say. If you like your 250X and you think it's the best bike ever, it doesn't matter what I say. But this is a would you rather for Kyle. Would you rather ride the Yamaha or the KTM in this case? So let's set aside the fact that this is really just a 2004 to 2006 YZ250. I mean, seriously, it's about 18 years old depending on how you do the math. It's got a lower compression motor, a little extra flywheel weight, a kickstand, and a weird spaced 5-speed gearbox that doesn't really work that well anywhere. I mean, they could have put their WR transmission in the thing to put a 6-speed and it would have been better. Those are the changes that they've done to the bike in basically 20 years, almost 2 decades. So would I rather have the 250XC? Yes. But everyone's like, Kyle, what about the price? Isn't the YZ250X right now going to be about $7,600, whereas the KTM 250XC is going to be about $10,000? So you're saving $2,400? Well, yes, you are. But you're saving $2,400 to get a bike that is 18 model years older than the KTM. 18 model years, guys. I'll take the 250XC every day and twice on Saturday, and I'm going to give you some reasons why now. Oh, and let's not even get me started on that bolt-on starter kit that I know some of the Yamaha fanboys are going to be talking about. You'd literally blow half of your savings on that starter kit to make the bike much heavier, and you end up with kind of like a Frankenstein bike afterwards. No, I'm not interested in that. If you're gonna buy the YZ250X to save the money, then don't blow half of that wad and put on like an aftermarket starter, because you already said that a starter doesn't matter to you if you got the YZ250X. So here we go. Here are some reasons why I would much rather have the KTM 250XC over the Yamaha YZ250X. And I'm not gonna nitpick on like a lot of little things. I'm just gonna go into like the meat and potatoes of why I think it's better. First off, I'm gonna start off with the motor. The motor on the KTM 250XC, KTM has basically continued to develop the two-stroke technology. They're the reason why we still have it pretty much in our industry. And they've actually been able to massage that motor and make it give a broad power, a broad linear power all over the power curve. There's a lot of people that think that two-strokes are just like on-off switches. And while I wouldn't say that the YZ250X is a technical on-off switch, it doesn't have the low-end tractability that the KTM has. It just doesn't have that low range power, the low RPM power, and the KTM actually pulls harder for longer. I know because I ride the bikes. I ride them back to back. I've ridden them back to back multiple times. The KTM motor just makes a better power across the entire RPM curve and better torque curve. And also, it doesn't vibrate. In 2017, KTM went to a counterbalance motor on their two-strokes, and these two-strokes, the KTM two-strokes, are actually smoother than some of the four-strokes that I have ridden. The YZ250X motor doesn't vibrate a lot. It's smoother than some of the other two-strokes out there. It was certainly smoother than the 2016 and older KTMs. But now it's just kind of a rattle box compared to the newer, modern 2017 and newer KTM motors. Let's jump right into the forks, because this is where a lot of the Yamaha boys will say, well, the Yamaha fork is way better than the KTM fork. And while I would admit that maybe 2018 and older, the Yamaha fork was definitely better than the KTM Air fork, I would say here in 2020, and probably in 2021, I haven't ridden that bike yet, the Air fork is actually just as good as the KYB Triple S fork, in my opinion, and I ride all of them. And it's a little bit more versatile. Now, I'm not gonna bag on the Yamaha Kayaba Triple S fork because it's a very good fork. It's proven over like a couple of decades. And I've even got a Kayaba fork in this room on that Sherco over there that I think is absolutely fantastic lights out. But they're not all lights out. It depends on what the valving is. And right now for me, I look at the KTM and I say, well, the fork on the KTM, I can adjust the air pressure, which means I can make it a little bit softer if we're gonna be doing some slower stuff. I can make it a little bit harder if we're doing some faster speed stuff just by putting air in the fork, a little bit more air in the fork, which is like changing the spring rate on the Kayaba fork. And so to me, the KTM fork is actually a little bit more versatile than the Yamaha fork just because I can change it so quickly on the fly. But that's the only thing where the Yamaha is even close to being like, okay, it's on par. And I'll just go ahead and say the fork is on par on the Yamaha with the KTM fork, just depends what you want. But the KTM fork is a little bit more versatile for me, and so I take the 250XC fork over the Yamaha Triple S fork because of those reasons. Let's talk about the frames. So the frame on the Yamaha is actually pretty good. The frame on the KTM is good, but I'm gonna say the frame on the KTM is a little bit better balanced than the Yamaha frame. The Yamaha frame is great for blitzing through stuff fast, like high-speed whoops and stuff like that. That bike stays really, really settled. Where the Yamaha frame kind of shows it's a little bit older, more sluggishness, in my opinion, is when the speeds are like lower. The KTM frame is just better balanced across the entire range of all of my riding. And so I take the frame on the KTM over the 18 to 20-year-old frame on the Yamaha. Let's talk about weight, because I know weight is a big thing for a lot of people. Now, weight is one of the last things I wanted to talk about here. In 2017, when I had the 250X and the KTM 250XC, the KTM 250XC was actually 1.5 pounds lighter than the YZ, and it had a much bigger gas tank. It had a battery, it had electric start, and it was still lighter than the Yamaha. Now here in 2020, the Yamaha is actually, because the Yamaha hasn't changed at all, and the KTM has gotten EFI, the Yamaha is about 2.5 pounds lighter than the KTM, but it's lacking all of these other things. And at least half of that weight savings is in the smaller amount of fuel that it actually carries, and I weigh my bikes all when they're clear full of fuel. Another reason why that Yamaha might be a little bit lighter is because it's carrying one less speed in the transmission. I would take that 6-speed all day long. Another reason why it's a little bit lighter right now is it doesn't have a battery in the bike. Now, I get a lot of people asking me like, okay, Kyle, I want to put a headlight on my YZ250X, or I want to put this accessory or that accessory. It's really hard to do when you don't have a battery stock in the bike, because you can't run some of these things. Yes, I know you can get maybe like a different stator to put out a little bit more power. Maybe then you're going to be able to, Frankenstein a light on the front of the YZ250X, but it's just a little bit harder to do because it doesn't have a battery from the get-go. Lastly, I just want to say, man, the YZ250X does not have electric start, and this basically makes it a deal breaker for doing some of the harder stuff that we do, soft enduro stuff where you're on the side hills and you're doing these things.
I wish I had a kickstart right now.
When we're hanging off the side of these mountains and you fall off the bike, sometimes it's almost impossible to kickstart the bike. And so as my riding has gotten more and more challenging and slower in some ways, faster in other ways, it kind of is a deal breaker for me when it doesn't have electric start. Yes, I want to have a backup Kickstarter on the bikes, and yes, I want to have electric start, but if I can only choose one, I take the electric start every time, because it's just, you save so much energy, and there are times that it's nearly impossible to kickstart the bike. So if you're just going desert terrain and you're never doing anything really technical, it isn't a big deal that you don't have electric start. But for a lot of the guys out there, not having electric start is a total deal killer. It is for me at this point, and so I take the 250XC over the YZ250X because of that any day. So in short, I feel like the KTM 250XC is better than the YZ250X in every measurable way, The only place I'm not gonna fight you on it is on the fork, and I really do believe that the fork is a push now, meaning that the forks are kind of equal in that category, but I'm not gonna fight you on that. But in every other measurable way, I think the KTM is hands down the better bike. Hey, just in closing here, I loved the YZ250X, and I loved the 2020 Yamaha YZ250FX that I just reviewed. But literally on the two-stroke YZ250X, I want Yamaha to either put up or shut up. Stop trotting out the same 18-year-old bike every year, year after year. At what point are you actually going to try? Yamaha, you have a ton of parts. You have a ton of things. The transmission for the WR, the frame for the YZ250FX. You've got a ton of ways that you could actually make that YZ250X a monster bike and sell a ton of them and be a KTM killer, but yet you don't do it. And I have to ask why. So for me and my money, I'm gonna take the KTM 250XC every day over the YZ250X because of all the reasons that I stated. It's just a better bike. I don't care that it's $2,400 cheaper. It's 18 model years older, dude. So Yamaha, please fix that bike, do some things to it so that it's actually like more of an apples to apples comparison. And that's what I would rather do. So guys, if you like these videos, please remember to subscribe to the YouTube channel and click that notification bell icon. Make sure that you're getting notified when I put out these videos. You can follow us on social media as well. One of the best ways to support Dirt Bike Channel is to use the links for Rocky Mountain ATV, Amazon Motorsport. You can find those links down over at my website, open the upper right-hand corner of the website, or they're down in the video description down here. Every once in a while, we do Dirt Bike Channel sweepstakes where we give away the bikes that we review. Later this year, I'm going to be giving away this bike, this KTM 250XC 2020 model. The sweepstakes for this will start on October 15th and go through December 15th. We'll be giving away 2 other bikes at that time. There will be a KTM 300 XCW TPI and a Sherco 300 SEF Factory. That's what's going on this year. I hope you like these videos. This is a super fun video for me to do. 2 bikes that I really liked, especially at the time that I reviewed the YZ250X, but hey, she's getting long in the tooth, and a lot of us are noticing that. I think that's what I've got for you. Until next time, leave a single track. Thanks.